Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Monday morning meeting. This is Wilson Cole. I'm with Adams, Evans, and Ross and Backdoor Hires. I'm joined by our general counsel and house attorney and my lovely daughter, Samantha. Hey, Sam, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing fine, doing fine. You know, we've kind of had some things happen over the last few weeks where clients can get emotional, and I kind of want to visit with you on it as well, where you can give kind of the legal perspective. But let me first say that I understand that it's easy for us to be emotionally detached because it wasn't done to us. But if I were sitting on the client's side of the desk, sometimes these debtors would just what they've done, the arrogance in which they've done it, the clients want to go out and get even. And I've had to walk a few clients off of the cliff. And the scenario that I always give to them was probably 10 years ago. I had a client that went out, I mean, and the debtor that owed him, 20 grand. And it was a horrible debtor. I mean, he was probably one of the worst debtors I've ever seen. But our client goes out, and this is back when Facebook and the different, chat rooms were fairly new. And he goes out and he starts trashing this guy online. He never paid a bill in his life. He's an absolute deadbeat and just everything else. Our client wound up getting sued by the debtor and wound up having to settle for a lot more money than the client originally had owed them in any form or fashion. And the argument that, and we told the client not to do it. They decided to go out and do it and all of that. But the argument that the debtor's attorney basically used was, you made a false statement of our client. You said they never paid anybody. Here's somebody they just paid 2 months ago. And so it shows that that statement was not factual. Now, my personal opinion is that's probably the only guy he's ever paid in the last 6 months or a year. But they were able to show that the statements from our client were not factual. Client got sued, wound up having to sue or settle, had to pay more than $50,000, less than $100,000 for the damage that he caused this debtor. The legal spin on it. So with this being said, before I pass it to you, as I always tell clients, if we're working on something, don't say squat. If we're not working on something, don't say squat. But sue them, do whatever you need to do, but going out and trashing somebody online never has a good response. Samantha, give us the legal spin on it.
Well, I think you also have to take it a step further than that. Don't go trashing them to the candidate either.
Good point.
I've had to walk somebody off that cliff recently as well, or a couple of people. Because you think you have this deep relationship with the candidate. Remember who's paying the candidate's bills.
Okay.
So you need to keep that in mind as well. When it comes to slander, libel, defamation, they're pretty much all the same thing. It's just lawyers like to have multiple words with slight, was it written down or was it just said to somebody else? Was it sent via email or was it, a billboard on 285? There are different levels. And so, and if you ever see a billboard like that, please send it to me just for the curiosity, not because you do sometimes see billboards where it's like so-and-so's a deadbeat and you just really want to know the backstory, but that's a side note. But you run into where they're like, I want to get even. Well, get even by following the proper channels and hopefully getting it resolved and paid, because that one off-the-cuff comment can come back and they can argue defamation. They can argue that you interfered with any other contracts they had out there. Mm-hmm. It can, the list of things that they can all of a sudden turn around and sue you for. It doesn't matter that they didn't pay your bill.
Yeah.
It now is how many bills of theirs are you about to pay?
Yes. And that's one thing, if a debtor, says, well, gee, you can go ahead and sue me, you're not going to get anything. Are there times that we sue folks and we don't get anything? Absolutely. But it's typically because they go out of business or they're in one of the few states that are not garnishable states. I can tell you, most of the time that we sue somebody, that debtor pays, whether it's settlement. But there's also a price that you extract that's equally as painful, because typically people that are like that have egos, and being sued for non-payment kind of goes against their image, I mean, of being held accountable. And secondly, they have to go out and they have to hire an attorney. They may owe you $20,000. If you sue them, you may wind up costing them an additional $10,000 or $15,000 because they have to go out and hire an attorney. And to me, that is a much better way of, quote, getting even than going out and trashing them, because forcing them to pay you what you feel you're justly owed, and if the court side with you, then obviously you are owed it, is a much better way. And Sam does mention a really good point, is don't trash the candidate, because keep in mind, once that...
Trash them to the candidate.
I was going to say, trash the company to the candidate, because once that candidate is their employee, the dynamics can change considerably, because now, and I'm going to throw out phrases that I've heard, different attorneys, including yourself, Sam, uses, contortious interference, with, as far as with the employee. That employee is, you're interfering. What would that fall under as far as if they trashed it? What is that referred to on?
Well, you'd have tortious interference of a contract, or contractual interference, depending on the state. You'd have issues of slander, defamation, because that is, some people are like, well, I didn't publish it. I said it to, so-and-so. I said it to another recruiter. It doesn't matter, because it's any person that isn't you or the debtor, or to a degree, a team, legal team or collection. You can say what you want to us. That wouldn't.
Yeah.
But if it's anybody that isn't a party to resolving the matter, it doesn't matter who you said it to or how many people. It's one person outside of the matter.
Okay. Well, that is good to know.
So I still don't recommend telling it to the debtor to their face, because it still complicates the situation as much as you would want to.
Well, even if you go out there and you say, and I'm going to do this, and this, I'm going to ruin you. And let's say you move on, you go play golf, you cool down or whatever. If bad stuff starts happening, they can still sue you and claim that you were saying stuff that maybe you didn't say. And then you wind up still having to spend the money to defend yourself. Now, will they be able to prove it? That's a different story. But it's just easier just to follow the proper channels. So the rule of thumb that I utilize is, when you need to turn over in a collection, is when they tell you they're not going to pay you because, period. And if a debtor is trying to goat you into an argument, and they're going to trash you and say this, and you think, well, I'll go ahead and beat them to the punch. Let them, if they want to say something, that's only going to help your case, especially if they document it. We had one very similar to that got resolved specifically because of it. But like I said, don't get down in the mud or in the gutter with the debtor. Sam, any last closing arguments?
I know it's hard, because usually birds of a feather flock together. And if you want to hear some of the stuff that their attorneys have thrown out at me, I understand the frustration. But sometimes it's easier to take the high road and get to the other side and get it resolved than this drag out for years.
And let me elaborate a little bit on what Samantha is saying. And this was something that I think coming into the legal profession all those years ago, I don't know if you fully had an understanding, but one thing that I tried to explain to Samantha is, if you have a debtor that's just in a cash flow crunch, and they're a nice guy, a nice lady, and they're trying to find a way to resolve it, or they're nice folks, they just don't have the money to resolve it, their attorneys are going to build a defense, they're going to do whatever they need to do, but they're going to be very similar. If you just have this, oh my God, nasty, vile, horrible debtor, I can assure you their attorney is going to be equally as bad. It's almost like their pet dog. If you have a nice owner, the dogs are typically nice. If you've got a bad owner, you're always going to have a bad dog, And so you get these attorneys that they will pull stuff out that isn't based in reality, fact, or anything. They're just trying to bluster to get everybody to back down. And typically another attorney that knows that what they're saying isn't going to hold water will get them back down. That's a segment for another day, is don't ever talk to your debtor's attorney, because they're not trying to talk to you to get it to resolve. They're trying to get you to make a statement that they can use to bite you in the butt later. So rule number one, follow the process. Don't ever say anything bad about the debtor. It's like your grandmother used to always tell me, Sam, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. I think that probably sums up this conversation. Well, outstanding. And we'll go ahead and meet everybody next week on the next issue of Monday Morning Memo. And Sam, thanks for joining me.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.